Imagine you live in a small town with a secret. You see, in this small town walks a silent killer. This killer is poisoning the townsfolk. They're dying in pain in countless numbers. But most shocking of all is that everyone knows who this killer is. Everyone knows what they're doing. They're just considered too big a deal to be challenged. Pretty soon it becomes easy, remarkably easy, to overlook death after death after death. This story sounds ridiculous. How could we overlook a killer that's claiming countless lives around us? Well, today I want to talk about pollution. Before I get started, I just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, who is no one. You see, it's incredibly important to me that these videos don't try to sell you anything, and so I don't accept sponsorships, I don't put YouTube ads on these videos, and because of that I'm incredibly thankful to people like Tom Dumbbell, who just became a patron over on Patreon, for their support of this channel. If you'd like to join Tom, the link is up here, but otherwise just by watching these videos, liking, subscribing, all of that stuff, you're already supporting the channel so much, so thank you. This channel focuses on climate change and the emissions that cause it. These emissions cause huge harm by disrupting the climate, which disrupts the human and natural worlds. But we humans also produce other chemicals which also cause harm, and cause harm directly. Whether it's air that's hard to breathe, water that's toxic to drink, or soil that produces poisonous plants, pollution is all around us. But there's this huge discrepancy though. We often talk about and think about pollution as if it's something that just harms the natural world. Perhaps we think of dead fish in a stream or plastic pollution in otherwise pristine environments. But I hate to break it to you, but we actually live on this planet too. And pollution is killing us in staggering numbers. And that's why I wanted to make a video about this, now in particular. A new study tries to estimate the total deaths caused by all forms of pollution. I'd be very curious to know what you would personally guess this number would be. What fraction of all deaths do you think are down to pollution? And remember, this isn't including deaths that are caused by the climate crisis. The answer? 1 in 6. I find this number absolutely breathtaking, if you'll excuse the poor choice of words. 1 in 6 people that die because of pollution. This number is comparable to the number of people who die from cancer, all forms of cancer. Although these two numbers aren't entirely separate, because some people who die from pollution will be dying from a form of cancer. Let's break this down a bit further. This 1 in 6 translates to 9 million deaths per year. 3/4 of these deaths are down to air pollution, but other forms of pollution have staggering impacts as well, like lead pollution, which can come from things like pipes and paints and causes more deaths per year than HIV/AIDS. When I think of this statistic, I think of 6 people close to me and what it means for one of these people to be taken away in this completely unnecessary way. This brings home, to me at least, the scale of this completely avoidable threat. But there's also something wrong with this picture. You see, pollution is targeting the most vulnerable among us. The vast majority of these deaths are taking place in lower income countries, and within richer countries, it's often the poorest that are hardest hit. Take my home city of London. In London, it's the areas with the lowest car ownership which often have the worst air quality because of the busy roads running through them. And we see that authorities often allow infrastructure to crumble in predominantly black areas in many countries. Take Flint in Michigan in the United States of America. In 2014, the water supply became contaminated, which was widely reported across the world. What has been less widely reported is that this crisis is still ongoing today, 8 years later. But look, maybe you hear all this and you just don't care. What's a few million lives, eh? Well, the authors of this study also estimated that pollution has staggering financial costs as well, at $4.6 trillion per year. Oh well, gosh, now we really have to do something. Now look, not all of this would be cleaned up by climate action. Stopping emitting greenhouse gases wouldn't necessarily clean up all our water, for one example. Plus, we need to think very carefully about where we get our materials for solar, wind, for batteries, and what we do with those materials at the end of those devices' lives. But at the same time, if we stopped digging up fossil fuels and burning them, that would hugely reduce the number of deaths from air pollution. We have just so much to gain by stopping climate change, apart from just stopping climate change. I want to wrap up by asking a question. Why do we put up with this? There are probably hundreds of answers to this question, and many of them are probably the same answers I gave in my last video, why haven't we solved climate change yet? And I'd be curious to know your answers too. But let's be honest, none of these reasons are good enough. When we harm the environment, we're also causing catastrophic self-harm. 1 in 6. I'm active.